The 70s. Yeah. Welcome back to the channel, ladies and gentlemen. So we are on Reading Through History channel. All right. It says daily life and popular culture in the 1970s. This should be very, very interesting. I want to see how much of this stuff I remember. How much of this stuff bled into the 80s. Hopefully everything goes smoothly with this video. Shout out to the good humans out there. Link is always in the description. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel right here, man. They seem to have a lot of good videos. So we ain't gonna waste no more time. Let's jump right into it.
The decade of the 1970s saw many changes for the American family. What were some of these changes? What was life like for Americans during this decade?
Look at that.
Most families in the 1970s consisted of a mother, father, and several children.
I remember.
However, unlike families of earlier eras, the notion of a housewife or stay-at-home mom was becoming a thing of the past. More and more women were entering the workforce every day. Women had more options available than ever before. In the past, careers for women had mostly been confined to the teaching profession, nursing, or working as a secretary. In the 1970s, more women began attending college to become doctors, lawyers, or businesswomen.
Give it up for the women.
With more women in the labor force, a variety of time and labor-saving devices entered the American home. From crock pots to microwave ovens, a number of innovative items became commonplace.
That's when they came through?
While microwaves had first been introduced to homes as far back as 1955, the devices did not become practical or affordable until the 1970s. Purchasing a cheaper microwave in the 1970s might have cost a little more than $250. Prices of other items varied greatly over the course of the decade.
Ooh, look at that.
For example, the average price of a new home in 1970 was $23,400. By 1979, this number had risen to $58,500.
$58,000 for... Oh, 23. Oh, this is what I'm here for. The prices. What?
A gallon of gasoline cost 36 cents in 1970, but swelled to 86 cents in 1980. The average price for a dozen eggs increased from 25 cents to 80 cents by the end of the decade.
Man.
Wages changed dramatically as well. In 1970, the average yearly income was $9,350. But by 1979, this had risen to $17,550.
Boy.
However, it must be remembered that wages and take-home pay would have varied greatly from position to position.
Right, of course.
For example, a doctor in 1975 would have earned around $50,000 a year, whereas a teacher might have earned...
Like, I know the cost of living was crazy back then, like way different. But just seeing that a doctor, 50, I mean, I know that was a lot back then. Or was it? Just a doctor making, ooh, and a teacher 12, man. And like, can we go back in time with the they say, can we go back in time with the money we make today? Back in man.
$12,000 a year. Minimum wage in 1970 was $1.60 an hour, but by 1979 it had risen to $2.90 an hour.
What is it now?
It is also worth noting that, despite it being against federal law, many employers continued paying women less for performing the same job as their male co-workers. During the decade, entertainment and leisure activities began to consume larger and larger portions of the typical family's time and budget.
Going out and about.
Increased availability and affordability of air travel meant that families could take long vacations across the country, but they did not have to spend time making long drives. For example, a family might have been able to visit Disney World in Florida, which opened in 1971.
71?
Travel certainly wasn't the only form of entertainment. Most American families spent the evening in front of the television, watching popular shows like All in the Family, MASH, Sanford and Son, Happy Days, or The Mary Tyler Moore Show. In 1976, the miniseries Roots became a cultural phenomenon. More than 130 million viewers watched the final episode, and the series was nominated for 37 Emmy Awards, winning 9. Music also played a major...
It's a lot of times people forget LeVar Burton was the one who played in Roots, because, you know, sometimes, I know a lot of people remember him from Star Trek, and then some people remember him from Reading Rainbow. But I think Roots was where he started, if I'm not mistaken.
Watched the final episode, and the series was nominated for 37 Emmy Awards, winning 9. Music also played a major role in the world of 1970s entertainment,
AC/DC?
And many new musical styles emerged throughout the decade. Whether it was the soft rock sounds of the Eagles, Elton John, Billy Joel, Rod Stewart, and Neil Diamond, or the hard rock sounds of Led Zeppelin, Queen, and Kiss, there was something for everyone. Disco is the music genre that the decade is often remembered for. The Bee Gees, Donna Summer, and many others produced numerous hits that could be heard in disco nightclubs across the country. Regardless of the preferred musical genre, 8-track tapes provided all listeners with a new way of experiencing their music.
Y'all sent me some.
Americans in the 1970s also loved going to the movies. The decade produced many classics, such as The Godfather, that are regarded as being amongst the best films ever made. Films like Taxi Driver, The French Connection, and Chinatown provided audiences with a glimpse of dark, gritty reality. Meanwhile, blockbusters like Jaws and Superman had moviegoers flocking to theaters. In 1977, George Lucas released Star Wars, which shattered box office records. By the end of the year, the film had earned more than $300 million, making it, at the time, the most successful motion picture in history.
Wow, $300 million.
The decade also saw teenagers becoming intrigued with a new form of entertainment known as video games. In 1972, Atari released an arcade game known as Pong, a simple, computerized version of ping pong. 3 years later, the company released a home version of the game.
Wow, man.
In 1978, Space Invaders was released. The game became incredibly popular and launched an arcade craze that swept the nation. Millions of teens swarmed into arcades, eager to spend money playing video games. By 1982, Space Invaders had made more than $2 billion and is still one of the highest grossing video games of all time.
Damn right!
Clothing in the 1970s took several interesting directions as well. Many women stopped wearing dresses and skirts, choosing to wear pants instead. Long-length skirts that reached the floor also became popular.
Like Taylor Swift and everything.
For men, shirts with wide collars and leisure suits became trends.
Oh, they're clean.
a relatively new synthetic fabric known as polyester was used to make every type of clothing item imaginable for both men and women. Throughout much of the decade, both genders wore shirts and pants in a tight, form-fitting manner.
Hey, boy, you got to be in shape to pull that off.
It should be remembered that not every family experienced the 1970s in the same way. These were just a few of the broad trends that were predominant throughout the decade. Each family and each individual living in the 1970s had a unique situation with their own stories, tastes, and preferences.
Hey man, shout out to this brother for the narrating. You know, it's crazy because like looking at the houses when I be watching those shows on HGTV and you see them going flipping houses and they be like, first thing they walk in, they're like, man, the 70s threw up in this house. But like, you know, when they do the remodel, because the house has so much like space, you know, that's what you can find in the older houses is a lot of space. And it just be crazy to see what they do to those houses, man. But this was such a good video. They covered everything I was hoping they would cover. You know, the money, looking at the clothing, talking about music, arcades. Like, oh, this was so cool, man. It really like took me back. But like the 80s. It does seem like the 70s was a little more chill. And in the 80s, they got a little more, you know, more hip. And then the 90s, this one just started getting really wild. But this was cool, man. Shout out again to the Reading Through History channel. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Appreciate y'all coming over and watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. If so, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe. Peace out.